Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be discussing my thoughts on the most recent Japanese stream that included Odin Dragon evolutions, as well as various other evolutions for the Egyptian 2 pantheon, as well as Indra and Vitra. So, generally of most streams, there are usually a lot of changes announced, but most notably, evolutions tend to be the most exciting aspect outside of major quality of life improvements. And this video and corresponding article will only be focusing on the evolution components, as the other aspects are either quite small or minor, or they actually just don't apply because they're Japanese specific collaborations. There was a small buff to Ryuni in which she gained some stats, -1 turn on her cooldown, and a skill bind resist, but that's kind of all that was. So for the most part, I'm going to be focusing on the new evolutions. Now, generally speaking, when these things are announced in Japan, they are released in a very timely manner, and North America, for the most part, has to wait usually 1 to 2 months or so for them to come over, and that can be frustrating, but you can also view it in a positive light in that we have the time to prepare for them, whether it's acquiring the evolution materials or even just seeing how they play out in the current meta. So it can be advantageous to have a slightly delayed release. Furthermore, I actually do not know when these cards will be released, so if you ask me when, I'm going to say soon. So, in regards to new evolutions, the most exciting one by far is Odin Dragon. He actually gained 2 evolutions, but only one of them is important, so I'm only going to focus on the important one. Now, the new Odin Dragon, or basically, I should say, Odin Dragon for the most part has been kind of a joke in the Puzzle and Dragons community. It was kind of laughable when it was released because, yes, it has a cool amount of weighted stats, it has an outrageous amount of awakenings in terms of auto heals, and it has a powerful bind clear, but Green Odin for the most part almost accomplishes the same amount, and you really don't need to spend 300,000 monster points just to get a slightly stronger Green Odin. Furthermore, Green Odin actually has better leadership potential beforehand, with the buff in allowing him to pair with Awoken Nube, whereas Odin Dragon is just sad by comparison. Now, maybe Gung Ho is trying to revitalize his popularity in that they're making 2 different evolutions, one that's quite easy to do, which is kind of pointless, and then one that I'm going to be focusing on that is actually quite powerful because it has a very high attack multiplier component. Now, he's been somewhat dubbed as the offensive Odin, and offensive Odin gained that name not because the art is actually hideous, but because it actually has a very high potential for burst damage because he now becomes a color cross leader. So, as you can see from this image here, in addition to basically removing all of those all of the auto heal awakenings, he gains more utility as well as that unusual 7 combo awakening, which I'll explain more in detail. But his leader skill has now been transformed to provide 3.5 times attack for each wood or light cross, along with healing 10 times of their base recovery when matching orbs. Or, sorry, 10 times of their recovery, so that includes plus eggs and latents as well. So this translates into 1,838 times attack on a 6x5 board because you can have 2 light, 1 wood, or 2 wood, 1 light crosses. You can obviously Skyfall one, but that's not likely. So you can have up to 1,800 times attack on a 6x5 board. In addition, 2 Odin Dragon leaders with 297s will provide you 20,940 worth of auto healing every single turn just for matching orbs. You don't even need hard orbs. So basically, if you just match one combo of, say, even red, you'll heal for basically 21,000 health. That's a very interesting twist on a defensive multiplier component because now we're not actually restricted to hard orbs being present. We can actually use any board changer we choose, or we can use Heartbreakers, and there's more variety, as well as being able to focus on your crosses and not worrying about the fact you're always going to heal pretty much the same amount. You can obviously gain some recovery by matching hard orbs as you normally would, but it's not important anymore by comparison. Furthermore, if you do match 2 color crosses, you are able to hit at least 150 times attack. Now, that spike damage of 1,800 times attack is more than sufficient to bypass the 10 million defense of the pre-draws, possibly even the red pre-draws, especially if you have light crosses and you match, and you have light cards on your team. Now, what also is powerful about the new Odin Dragon is that he is bind immune. So basically, bind immune leaders is one of the more important aspects when determining if a team is going to be strong because now we don't actually have to worry about certain mechanics. We always will have our multiplier intact. We'll always have this massive amount of auto healing and access to high damage. Now, the main drawbacks of this is going to be a lack of a health multiplier, which does become somewhat of a problem because even in co-op, you're not going to be having as outrageous amounts of health pools, and you are going to be reliant to a certain degree on damage mitigation and shielding subs. Now, that's not terrible, to be honest, as a drawback, because at least we do have skill inheritance. We do have, say, Susannos or Indras that we could inherit around, as well as potentially using Odin Dragons as the basis, because while Odin Dragon does have a lackluster active skill, you can inherit something over top of it at least, so it's alright in that regards. But what I want to focus on, which is unusual, is the 7 combo awakening he actually has. Now, this new 7 combo awakening allows that particular monster to deal 2 times damage when hitting 7 or more combos. Now, to achieve 7 or more combos with a single cross is quite challenging. To achieve 7 or more combos with 2 crosses is nearly impossible, or possibly impossible without Skyfalls. So, it's just a strange awakening to give him. It just feels out of place for the playstyle. Maybe it's to encourage his usage as a sub, but even then, I don't know if you really need him as a sub on a lot of teams. Like, it'd be just a very luxurious buying clear option, at least has the potential to hit higher numbers. So it just feels out of place in all honesty. So overall, I feel like this new offensive Odin Dragon will become quite a powerful leader. It's going to at least be making some waves in the meta because it's kind of bringing up the whole color cross meta. And while he may not necessarily be as strong as Aizen, at least this is my opinion, won't be necessarily strong as Aizen because of the no flat multiplier component as well as a lesser active skill, it's still going to be quite powerful, and it gives players at least an option to utilize their light or wood box when they normally have been lacking it. In addition, the whole idea of not utilizing hard orbs to heal is quite exciting because, again, it opens up more opportunities and potential for board changers like Mei or even Heartbreakers to provide you with additional orbs. So I'm pretty excited about Odin Dragon. Maybe it will basically rethink a lot of players' decisions whether or not to buy him because it is at least a powerful leader and it will be accessible in the sense that at least we did have Gaia Dragons from the one-shot challenge. And maybe it will give use to my 13 Gaia Dragons, so we'll see if I actually do purchase him in the next couple of months. Next on the Evolution roster being released is some for the Egyptian 2 Pantheon. Now, the Egyptian 2 Pantheon was released at a time when power creep was having a big shift, and none of them really took off as a powerful leader or sub. And this is unfortunate because usually when a new Pantheon is released, they tend to be more powerful, but Egyptian 2s just happen to be lackluster overall. Now, Gunko is trying to remedy this through these new evolutions, which do bolster their modest leadership potential, as well as providing the new 7 combo awakening. Now, that 7 combo awakening, again, is 2 times damage for hitting 7 combos or more, and it isn't like a killer awakening that can be turned on and off in the sense that if you control the amount of combos you make, barring Skyfalls, you will be able to deal higher amounts of damage. Now, for the most part, this is a very new awakening, and not many cards actually have this, so perhaps the Egyptian 2 Pantheon is kind of paving the way, so to speak, for more cards gaining this awakening, because while it is a very powerful thing to have, unless your whole team has it, or many cards do, your overall multiplier is not going to be that high if the base leader skill is low to begin with. So one thing to keep in mind is that all these Egyptian 2 evolutions do not actually change their active skill, and because it's not an awoken evolution, so you don't have to worry about reskilling them back up again. So first off is Nut, and Nut was basically used as a situational or niche sub on mono water teams because they had 4 orb enhances, 2 TPAs, and a reasonable body in terms of stats, as well as a 4-turn base cooldown in order to easily inherit something over top of it. So while it was niche, it was at least an option, not very popular necessarily, and hopefully this evolution is improving upon that. I think I prefer this artwork as opposed to the other one, and I feel like I would switch my Nut over here. Some people call this a split Nut evolution. That just sounds painful, so we're just going to call this the blue-green Nut. Now, Blue-Green Nut's leader skill has been buffed to 2.25 times health, 25 times attack, and 2.25 times recovery when you hit 7+ combos. Now, that's not a very powerful leader skill from a multiplier point of view. Yes, you are durable, but you're not going to be hitting for much damage. And while Nut can achieve 50 times damage with her 7 combo awakening, as well as the TPA stacking, the rest of your team does not have this 7 combo awakening. So it's going to be a little challenging to utilize Nut as a leader. So I feel that she's being more so pushed towards a sub role. And as a sub, it can have value on, say, Rukia teams, but for the most part, I feel that it's still going to be a niche card you bring out once in a while when you want to have a low cooldown base to inherit something over top of in order to basically access an active skill that would normally be inaccessible. Now, one thing I want to stress is that because they are blue-green and have the god typing, they can in theory be used as a budget Isis replacement on Raw Dragon teams. Because again, you're covering the same 2 important colors as well as having that low cooldown in order to inherit something over top of it. Furthermore, with at least the more offensive awakenings, most notably the TPAs, you have the potential to deal more damage. The 7 combos can be either utilized or non-awoken in order to either cap her damage potential, because it may become problematic on absorption bosses if one card's hitting for 2 times damage. But then again, you may just choose to have it there and just simply not match a TPA. It all depends. And to be fair, water against absorption bosses is not as detrimental because, generally speaking, Parvati and Vishnu are the 2 major hurdles, and being wood, it shouldn't be that big of a deal with a water card hitting basically for the normal amount of damage compared to the rest of the team. But the reason why I call Nut a budget Isis sub is because the lack of bind immunity. And because they are not bind immune, it kind of breaks the whole fully immune team, and it just is a little less ideal, but nevertheless still a strong option. Next is Osiris, and Osiris follows a very similar pattern to Nut in that they changed a column to their respective color. They had the 4 orb enhances and 2 TPAs. But unfortunately, Osiris was pretty much outclassed by Vishnu in most regards because Vishnu had the extra TPA, the Skyfall buff active, as well as the dual skill bind resist now. However, Osiris at least has a way to compete with Vishnu if you don't need the skill bind resist, because that 7+ combo awakening allows Osiris to hit actually harder even when TPA is taken into account. So it does at least provide Osiris with at least some benefits to run over Vishnu. However, Osiris's leader skill is actually quite exciting. Now, Osiris's leader skill is able to cap at 2.25 times health and recovery, along with 42.25 times attack when matching 6+ combos. It does not say, or I'm not sure where the scaling cuts off at, where it maxes out, and hopefully it's not something outrageous like 9 combos, and if it's something manageable like 7 or 8, this becomes actually a very powerful leader, because we can then favorably compare Osiris to Krishna, because Osiris would have, in theory, a much less restrictive leader skill from an activation point of view. Krishna requires 9 fire orbs for full activation, and if Osiris requires 7 or 8 combos, you can get that from a given board. You don't have to use orb changers. You can go through the dungeon quickly. So it does have inherent advantages, and it will play out like a more tanky Shiva team in the sense that you have that health component. So Osiris is actually going to be quite a formidable leader because, for one, Krishna is able to clear Arena 3 with reasonable consistency, so Osiris should be able to do so as well, possibly faster. So this is a great benefit. Furthermore, by being wood, you are at least having a little easier time against, say, Vishnu and Vishnu and Parvati, in that you're not doing double damage, so it's a little easier to control it, if that makes sense. So I'm pretty excited about Osiris. I don't even own Osiris, but I'd be pretty excited if you did have one, because it is a nice twist on tanky combo leaders, so that is exciting. Furthermore, the fact that Wood has so many powerful TPA cards available, you can build a very formidable team. Now, the only downsides I can see of Osiris is that his multiplier is low, as well as being vulnerable to binds. And perhaps if his combo requirements is too high, it's going to be a little unrealistic to hit, say, 9+ combos every turn. Next is Hathor. And Hathor was released quite some time ago, and she was released at a time when rainbow teams were starting to take off with Awoken Ra and the regular Raw Dragon. And Hathor pretty much was just insufficient overall by all means, because she was 20.25 times attack compared to 100 and 144 times for Raw and Raw Dragon. So it just didn't really fit in. Yes, you're more durable, but if you can't blow content up, it's not going to do that good for you. So she was in an awkward place, and she never really became powerful or popular. And this new evolution attempts to remedy that, but I don't feel that it's actually that meaningful, at least from a leader point of view, because as a leader, Hathor becomes 22.25 times health and recovery, along with 36 times attack for light cards when you match any 5 elements, so 5 colors or 4 plus heal. Now, she does actually have 2 of the 7 combo awakenings, and that would allow Hathor to hit 36 times 4, which means 144 times attack. So that's on par with Raw Dragon when you make 7 combos. So that's great because you at least have some damage control. You can scale it down to 5 combos or at least hit the massive numbers with Raw Dragon's multiplier of 144 times. However, the rest of her team will be hitting for 36 times, so it's just problematic overall. So unless we start getting more and more cards with the 7 combo multiplier, Hathor as a leader is going to be lackluster. Now, with that being said, we could potentially use Hathor as a more powerful sub if you need that gravity active skill, or you want to have a card who is essentially unconditional 4 times damage, because if you are able to hit 7 combos every turn, she's going to have 4 times damage. And if your multiplier is much higher, say like on even, say, a Raw Dragon team, you are going to have a card hitting for spectacularly high amounts of damage against every single floor. So it does open up options for Hathor being used as a sub more, and presently speaking, I would say New Year's Yomi is perhaps the best fit for her if you need that gravity, because again, New Year's Yomi wants to make combos, as well as Hathor and Yomi both sharing those 7 combo awakenings. And last but not least, we come to the Reincarnated Indian 1 evolutions. Now, Indra and Vitra already had existing Awoken evolutions, so this is actually a reincarnated process, which will upgrade them from a leader skill and a base stats point of view. In addition, both of these cards actually gained a time extend awakening, so it's just something to keep in mind. It's another little benefit, as well as changing their sub-color attribute. So, Indra basically has been widely regarded as one of the strongest, if not the strongest, shielding option available. In their non-awoken form, they provide 75% damage reduction for 3 turns, and that's incredibly powerful because it allows you to basically survive oncoming attacks for 3 turns. You probably won't die in those 3 turns, which is quite fantastic. And most players have left their Indra in that form in order to inherit them around, such as on their Raw Dragon teams. Now, Gung-Ho is perhaps trying to make the Awoken and thus now reincarnated form a little more appealing with the improvements to the base stats, as well as the awakenings and leader skill. Now, another thing to keep in mind is this Indra actually regains their god typing, so you actually could use them on Raw Dragon teams, because Awoken Indra you were unable to, so a lot of people were forced to leave Indra in their light form. Now, Indra's reincarnated form is light dark, and they provide 7 times attack and 2 times recovery when using a single Indra. So that's something to keep in mind for dragon and physical types when you match light and dark combos. Now, dual color activations are alright, and dual Indras can form at least a 49 times team with 4 times recovery, but you have 2 overly powerful shielding actives, so it's not really that helpful. And in terms of light dragon or physical type monsters, you can definitely field some of them, but it's just kind of an awkward team. You have too much recovery, and you have too much shielding, in my opinion. So a lot of people may feel that they want a pair of now Vitra, and Vitra gains a similar style leader skill in that it's 2 times health and 7 times attack when matching light and dark. So together, they're 2 times health, 49 times attack, 2 times recovery for dragon types when matching light and dark. So that's a much more well-rounded leader skill. However, finding the appropriate dragons can be a frustrating task, as well as the fact that one of your cards is going to have less contribution overall, because when you think about it, say you're making a dark-based team, Indra's going to be light, so automatically one of your subs is hitting significantly less damage. Conversely, a light-based team would have Vitra hitting less. So you are lowering your damage output to a certain degree, and it may seem a little nitpicky to say this, but if you are trying to build a strong or powerful team, and you want to determine if it's worth investing plus eggs, latents, and inherits, you want to have something that's as optimal as possible, and I feel that just Vitra Indra is not going to be that potent. they may almost be better off by themselves, at least the Indra one is. But then again, both of them have active skills you don't want doubles of on a team, so again, it's a little frustrating to deal with, considering they're not that overpowered in that, let's say, Raw Dragon, who has a weak active skill, is compensated by his leader skill, whereas these two are not by comparison. Now, one thing to keep in mind with Vitra is that he can still be paired with Nobunaga, and with Nobunaga, you are able to hit for very high amounts of damage because Vitra's leader skill got buffed significantly, as well as Nobunaga simply wanting to have devil cards as well. So it may work. I think Nobunaga does not have a color activation clause, so I believe you are still going to just rely on making the dark and light matches to succeed for this team. So it's another option, but it's alright. And then I guess one final thought is that the Time Extend Awakening was actually put in between God Killer, or put in before God Killer. So if you don't want to have God Killer to control damage, you won't actually have God Killer automatically awokened or selected, and you get the Time Extend anyways. So, in conclusion, the offensive Odin Dragon is probably the most exciting addition from this patch for Puzzle and Dragons because it does provide a new layer for the color cross meta, as well as giving what was once a laughable card plenty of relevancy in today's meta. So I feel that's definitely the highlight of this update, and the other evolutions, while nice, are not game-breaking. The Egyptian 2s, we're still waiting for Set and Nephi, as well as hoping that the 7 Combo Awakening does catch on more for additional cards, so their potency is increased. So, well, who are you most excited about from this update? Like, which card are you most excited for? Do you think you actually would buy Odin Dragon? Let me know in the comments below. Hopefully you have a mantastic day, and happy puzzling!